I've got one flower.
Look at all that pollen.
My wife.
I know.
That's good.
I don't even know. She told me one flood, but they're still working.
Really?
Flowers.
Wow.
Even the bumblebees and the bees are in there.
Since I was walking in, there were two big old bumblebees out here on these flowers.
But that's the last ones we got.
Yeah, mine are bringing in some pollen too still. I don't know where they're getting it.
I don't know, but
Oh, that goldenrod, are you kidding? There's a ton of it.
Yeah, I had a bunch. We used to have a lot, but then they started doing all that construction around this. It's nearly as much growth.
I kind of let everything grow, not brush hog, but let whatever got there till the last minute.
Yeah, my bees are looking pretty good. They're doing fine. I still have that one hive that I'm a little nervous about. It's a little small, but it's been building up. So got my fingers crossed. So today, we're going to get started. So our topic today is insulation, ventilation, and condensation. So a couple of controversial topics as it is. So at least if you throw things, don't aim for my face. This is my money maker.
Yeah.
Which you can tell why I don't have a lot of money, right? No, but Gladys and I were this past weekend, we're at the Arkansas Beekeepers Association meeting. When the top wasn't really a talk on ventilation, but the topic did come up now and then, and it was a little bit, probably the most heated discussion in the whole 2 days. Of course, we don't want to see that, right? We don't want our bees dying over the winter.
Oh,
Those poor babies. And then, of course, these. Last year, I had a hive that kind of looked like that. A little bit smaller than most of they weren't doing things. Even before you think about insulation or ventilation or condensation, you know, healthy bees, that's always a big concern. I know the first year, I know I lost a hive over the winter. And I know that their varroa mites, I never really got them under control. So I'm guessing that had something to do with it. But again, varroa really aren't the issue so much as the viruses that they carry. So that's what really causes them. And then some get concerned about nosema, and recently, not recently, but it has been associated with colony collapse disorders. I've never really focused myself on nosema. Insulation, right? The topic of, as we think about the weather coming up. There's some insulated hives there. This one in the middle here, this one right here is my favorite. It's got some stuff around it. It's got egg around it. That one's pretty cool. And of course, we have the ultimate insulation. You're cold outside, they are too. Bring them in, right? That's a commercial beekeeper in Canada. That's the guy that's bringing in their hives for the. Okay, so insulation, again, that we mentioned before, we talked about insulation values. As we said, many beekeepers believe the hives should be insulated during the winter. I think a lot of that depends on where you live. But the basic pine box really doesn't provide a lot of insulation values. It has an R value, maybe 1 to 1.25. Plastic hives like the one I use, the Acme Maze, they have about a 6 to 7. Polystyrene, and of course, our good pal, Dr. Thomas Seeley, observed that tree cavities with that are thick and R value of branding. Now, personally, when he gets lice, remember, he's up in the Arnold Forest in northern New York, but he insulates at the top to about 30 and the sides to close to 30. We can. You know, honeybees, as we know, they don't really heat the hive like we would our house, right? They cluster in the winter, and that's where the focus of the heat is clustering. There's a lot of open space within the hive that they're not intentionally trying to heat. Change the slide. So the center of the cluster is where, of course, the queen and the brood is going to be, and that's where we're going to try to keep it the warmest. Right? When temperatures drop below about 15 degrees Fahrenheit, the bees inside work harder, vibrating their flight muscles to generate heat. Usually they try to keep the inside in the 80s, a little bit higher if they have brood in there as well. But as it gets colder, the cluster will contract and get even tighter and tighter to try to generate more heat. And good old Tom Seeley, this was an interesting study that he did. It was just a 24-hour study that he was looking at the temperatures in different conditions. So he has the ambient temperature of the air, that's this line right here, over that 24-hour period, how it changed. And then he had a tree hive that had bees in it, its temperature. And then he had a lamp straw hive with insulation, occupied with bees. And then he had one without insulation, occupied by bees. And so this is the tree cavity. It more or less maintained its temperature, which was pretty standard throughout the 24-hour period. And the occupied with the insulation was also very similar. It was warmer, of course, than the tree, but it also maintained its temperature fairly stable. Now, his insulation was wool blankets that provided, they estimated the value around the hive to be about R30. So it says the insulated hive, not just like an 8 or 9 or 10, he was really low. And so that was kind of one of his studies that he did. So he recommended after this study, like I said, he generally goes around R30, is what he tries to do on his hives, particularly on the top. And we'll see why later on when we talk about condensation. Some people use hive wraps, black felt paper, but doesn't really provide any insulation value, but it can help cut down on drafts and breezes. The bees do try to propylize all the cracks and stuff, but if you are going to use something like that, it's probably not going to provide any real insulation. Okay. So Seeley and his cohorts recommend insulating at cold weather. Now, we're actually not really considered a very cold weather area. Most of cold weather is above us. We'll talk about really needing insulation or recommending insulation. But they do recommend insulation and say that, with a smaller colony, proper insulation could mean the difference between survival and not survival. Okay. Now, the really controversial topic, ventilation. This is the one that really gets people upset, starts throwing stuff, things like that. All right, so these are a couple of quotes. There's some interesting quotes over time that will relate to ventilation. And notice this one was in Canada, and it mentioned that upper entrance is an important requirement for successful outdoor wintering. The colony cluster gives off water vapor, and as they respirate, of course, and rise to the top of the hive, it must be allowed to escape. So this was their 1998 recommending, not really recommending, but saying it's pretty much an important requirement. This one from 2013, excuse me. Again, lots of stuff there, but basically colonies can survive very well without elaborate wintering preparations as long as they're protected from winter winds and they're able to vent excess moisture. And then later on in this article, they make that statement, beekeepers should provide upward ventilation and then a method to do that. Now, a lot of the issues or the discussion of ventilation came from a study way back in 1943. I was just a little tiny back then when Anderson did his experiment. And what he did was he had a hive that had no vent. He had a 15-watt bulb, and he had a thermometer at the top, and he measured the temperature. And then he used another hive, only he had a vent at the top. Same conditions, had a 15-watt bulb and then temperature, a thermometer at the top. And he reported that really there was no difference in temperatures whether you had the vent there or not. So that was one of the big, hey, we should have the top so that it deal with some of the moisture. But of course, 1943 was a long time ago. So good old engineers had nothing better to do. So they said, you know, we really need to look at that and we need to reconsider that study. So again, they have the two basic setups, the 15-watt bulb, the thermometer at the top, but they also had other temperature sensors around. And so if you notice here, we have a lot of heat loss going out the top by convection. Either way, right? No insulation anywhere. It's got the entrance only. See that we have this warm air pool that kind of stays there. And of course, cold air at the bottom. You're going to have cold air because you have an entrance, right? There's going to be no into the cold air. But then with the vent, you still get that heat pool, but notice it's not nearly as large, right? It's kind of compacted somewhat. And he said by having that opening there, you know, with just the sensor up here, you really couldn't tell any type of difference in temperature because you still got that area that you have where the heat is going to be. But it is a smaller area. As you put sensors in other places to measure temperature, they were able to find quite a bit of difference as far as temperature goes. So then they continued their studies and said, well, let's look at it from an insulating point of view. So once again, they insulated the hive, same thing with the 15-watt bulb. Notice the top insulation, how much it reduced heat leaving the top of the hive through convection. Still get that. And instead of warm air, it tends to be hot air in there, right? Because it's insulated, stays warm. Then again, adding the vent. But notice this when you add the vent to an insulated hive. A lot bigger area where it's cold compared to the previous one where there's no insulation. Still have very little going out the top, but you can see that the hot pool is quite a bit smaller in that there's more airflow. Now, there's a whole lot of reasons that they explain why that happens. But one of the final recommendations was, or one of the final things that they said had to do with this was, you know, insulating a hive and having an upper vent is almost worse than not insulating at all. And this was what they were trying to show with the difference in temperature, how much you had there. And again, there's lots of reasons why that happens. They explain that quite in depth in a lot of technical terms. But again, just to kind of compare top vent insulated versus uninsulated, actually have more of a cold area inside the hive than you do just have a top vent without any insulation. So that's why they reached the conclusion that it could actually be more detrimental if you're going to insulate a hive and have a top vent. All right. And again, if we compare it without the vent, here hot air, over there we have warm air. And really, a big important part though is insulating all around, and especially the top. And that's really where the focus of what they were getting to. Okay, so now let's look at that condensation. Let's face it, wet bees are dead bees, right? If we have wet bees in the winter, we're going to lose a bunch of bees at a time. Here we kind of see, again, this is from Tom Steely's work. We kind of see the inside of the tree cavity with the bees. We have the cluster over the winter. We have the heat loss going to the top from the cluster, right? The heat rises, so the heat's going to go up. But we can see that with a tree being heavily insulated, particularly at the top, that for the most part, any condensation that's occurring is going up and it's coming down the side. The sides are generally going to be less insulated than the top, so the sides are going to be cooler. You're going to have a dew point lower, and so when the moisture goes up and it's that, it's gonna come down, rain down the sides. Bees still need water in the winter, right? They need water when the weather's warm, and they need water when the weather's cold. So having this moisture coming down inside their hive is not really necessarily a bad thing, because they actually will lift it up, and they'll use that as water over the winter, that moisture that they've got inside the hive. Now, there's a lot more interesting research coming out now that shows that by drying out a hive too much and lowering the moisture inside the hive, it also tends to benefit varroa mites and their reproduction. So more moisture in the air within the hive does tend to, cutting edge or newer research, does tend to kill the mites. They reproduce much less. That's interesting stuff. I haven't read all the stuff yet. But somebody just brought that up also at the meeting. At the meeting was, I don't know if it was Dr. John, I can never say his last name, but he's the U of A agriculture. He's the bee guy, if you will. So if you go to their website, you'll see his name and you'll see all the different publications. When I start out with the Arkansas beekeeping calendar, that's something he develops. That's his thing. So he was there and he did a little bit of talking about this, but he was mainly talking about a lot of new things coming out. There's a new varroa mite treatment that's coming out. It's actually been out in other parts of the world. It's just recently been being approved for the U.S. But it attacks the mite's DNA. Doesn't seem to affect the bees at all. So you still have mites, but they don't reproduce. They're unable to reproduce, so you have a lot less issues with mites and diseases. Now, it was funny because he put up a display of it. I can't even think what the name of the product was, but he put it up there and he said, yeah, it's going to be available pretty soon. And I leaned over to Gladys and said, she was already laughing. I leaned over to her and said, I'm going to get that, but it's available in the U.S. She said, that's why I was laughing, because I knew you were going. But that was one of the things. So then they also, that's what led to just a little bit of a discussion about the moisture and humidity inside the hive. And that higher humidity in the hive actually does help to eliminate varroa mite problems. Okay, so again, moisture is natural. It's going to happen in bees breathe like we do, right? They're eating honey to be able to have power to generate heat with their wings. So there's going to be moisture. It's going to be the thing, right? So again, typically what we would see in a hive, warm air, like created by the cluster, is going to rise. Cold outer cover, it's going to condense. Then you're going to have that water just coming right back down on the cluster. And remember what we said about water on bees. Wet bees are going to be dead bees, pretty much. So again, condensation is okay in a hive, but it's just a matter of trying to control where it is. If you're going to have condensation in the hive, if you're not going to have a vent at the top to where you're going to have maybe vent out some of that moisture, the recommendation is to have at least some insulation on the top, even if you don't have any on the sides, right? There's a recommendation of at least having insulation on the top. And that way, as the warm air, moist air rises, it will come off to the sides. Right? The center right above the cluster is going to be insulated. It's not going to be cold. And then as the moisture, as it comes off to the sides, it's going to hit the colder sides of the hive, and then it'll condense and then roll down. And the bees will lick it up off the sides. So what I'm basically trying to do by doing this is kind of recreating this right here to how it pretty much works in a natural hive that bees would be in a tree. Now, there are a lot of people out there selling products now to try to do this. One that, I think it's called Hive Hugger. So then she created she created a whole business on this concept of trying to force any condensation to occur off to the sides as opposed to. So you don't really need to buy all that stuff. It's just a matter of providing some type of insulation at the top. And around here, we probably get away without insulating our hives. We're really not all that cold. But I know every year I've insulated the top. Has played off better than I really can't say that's why my bees died, but I did not insulate one of my Abbey May hives at the top. And that hive was one of the ones that kind of looked like one of those cover pictures that I started with when I opened up stuff. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I insulate how because of that, but I don't really want to try like having them together and try like insulate the top of some and not the other ones just to kind of put them out there. But the Abbey May itself, the top cover is insulated a little bit. The feeders are on serve as the inner board. And so there's a little bit of a dead space up there, but they have vents on the ends. And so it's kind of vented as it is. And so over winter, a lot of people will block those vents. That's what I did. I just kind of blocked the vents. I put some insulation up in there. And they've had a lot of people complaining. So actually just this year, they came out with an actual vent closure. So you can put it on and actually close the vents when you want them closed or open them when you want them open. So again, it's kind of the concept that they're talking about. No ventilation. Heat loss equals more moisture management. R30 plus insulation on the top to reduce that heat loss and push that heat dome down. Again, condensing wall on purpose to where you're going to have lower insulation on the sides. So when that moisture goes up, it hits the top that is not cold, that's warm, and then it'll go off to the sides and then come down the sides. Lower entrance only. And then again, depending on how many bees you have, whether you use a double, a single, or a smaller. Ryan, you always said you do singles, right? You overwinter singles. Does anybody else overwinter singles? You do? This year I'm going to do doubles, but most years I overwinter singles myself. But that one that I have that's kind of small, that's going to be a tough one. I don't think it's going to make it. I'm hoping they're building it. I've been really busy and haven't been able to. In fact, last time I went into beehive was when I came to your house. And that was your bees, not even mine. So other than just looking at them, I haven't been inside with them. I see quite a bit of flying, so hopefully they're building pretty well. All right. Okay, so just some general comments. Bees are extremely well adapted to stay warm in the winter. Key point, all beekeeping is hyper-local. Hyper-local. So things that we see that, if you on YouTube and you see about insulating, take into account where they're located. People in northern Michigan might have a different requirement or even thinking about insulating compared to we do. Does anybody insulate their hives?
I did last year.
How did it work out?
It worked fine.
I do it all the time.
Worked well?
Yeah, in fact, I have to harvest honey every spring.
Spring? Cool.
Now, I put a medium all honey.
Yeah.
Open. And
Single brood or two?
I counted as 2 brood, but in the spring, they're doing brood up in that top box in like mid-February. I think the advantage of the insulation is simply the bees don't work as hard.
Right.
More
Absolutely.
than anything else, I think that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you've shown with that one where the insulated hive, it helps maintain the temperature. And so they're not having to work as hard to, maintain that temperature inside the hive. Do you use a top vent?
No.
No.
I guess my hives is typical lame straw leaky
Yeah.
hives.
Yeah.
I buy the cheapest pillow I can at Walmart,
right?
and I put a medium box on top, I just stuff the pillow in.
Yeah.
That way it's easy to get into. I started out using pine needles at first. It's a total mess.
Absolutely.
Put it in a pillowcase though.
Oh, she's got a point. I couldn't, punch it around good.
That's what I did for my top insulation. So,
Pillowcase, but one chips in it.
Yeah, I tried that too, they got less.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, it's a- so.
they will absorb any water, and so some people do that instead of a top vent to deal with any excess moistures, you know, to gather up that water. Of course, anytime again, when it gets soaked, it's not really providing any insulation value, so you gotta kind of swap it out. Do you do anything?
Days. I just pull the pillows out, lay them on top of the hive until sundown and go right back in.
What's longer?
Your insulation, do you use top vents? What do you do?
Last year I did.
You use top vents?
No, no. I took my inner cover off.
Yep.
Laid the insulation. Well, I was feeding hive alive, so I've got a little spacer.
Spacer, yeah.
And then put the insulation on top in the lid. It's about that thick. It's some insulation I had. Or you offer siding on houses.
Yeah.
I just cut it up, stacked it in there. It's about an R 10, 15, something like that. It's better than nothing.
Did you ever use vents?
Hmm?
Did you ever have a top vent?
At night, I mean during the winter,
During the winter,
yeah, I have.
did you have good luck with it?
I mean, I never lost any. I'm just calling the inner cover with the
Right.
slot in,
Right.
that my vent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be,
I've done that, and then I may do that experiment you're talking about, insulate a couple, I've got 5. I may do a couple and just kind of experiment. Because, I mean, I've had luck both ways, so.
and that's the thing, you can do everything the same one, you know, you
Yeah.
can have 2 hives, 3 hives next to each other, do the same exact thing and
Yeah,
get to.
they all,
This will be my first year of trying to overwinter a wood hive. All my stuff has been happy. So
and I
this
see mine's all wooden.
will be the first time I've done a wood hive. Kind of interesting. Kind of interested. Of course, I'm keeping an eye on Phyllis's bees, so we're gonna see how we can overwinter her egg framer.
Yes.
And that's gonna be a single brood box.
Good.
That's gonna be a single. Her name is Mark.
Yes.
Accidentally, for some reason, last month, the name Phyllis was in my head, and every time I referred to her, I referred to her as Phyllis, and she was so nice and so kind. She didn't, call me out on it. She just
After I figured
answered.
out.
I said, "Hey, Phyllis," she answered the question, and then later on, she goes, "Why do you keep calling me Phyllis?" I, for some reason, I had the name Phyllis. Oh, I knew it was that woman that used to be here, Phyllis.
Oh,
I was
yeah,
thinking of her. In fact, we did not see her. She was gonna go to the,
yes, she said she was.
yeah, I heard she had a name tag there, but she wasn't there. Who else? You overwinter, right? Sir? Me? Yeah.
Right,
How do you, what do you do?
insulation,
Insulation?
I don't do that.
No venting. Okay, I thought that part was what was gonna get me stuff thrown at me.
I didn't have good luck last year, no either, so.
I'm sorry?
I didn't have good luck last year.
Yeah.
So. I don't know what.
How about, you guys have bees?
We have 4, but this is our first year, so we're trying to learn what would be the best way to overwinter. And I was wondering about those hot boxes. Is it
Yeah.
fine? Are they any good or do they work?
I'm the wrong person to ask, because I'm a gadget kind of guy. Just, my wife's over there laughing already, because, so
Well,
you
they
can sell me almost any gadget to do almost anything. So Ryan would be the better person to ask on that.
have, I don't know, did you call it insulation in there?
Yes.
You're supposed to dry it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I said cheap pillows from Walmart. That's kind of what I did my first year, and I stuffed them up in the Active Made top and put it on there, and that helped block the vents and go out, take it out when I could, and put it out to let it dry out a little bit, because it did absorb the moisture coming out. Definitely absorbed the moisture. I didn't get to trickle down the side, because of course I had something that would absorb the moisture, as opposed to like rigid insulation board. That's what I'm gonna try this year, is a
Well,
rigid.
then I had a good look with it, so.
That's what
I
I'm gonna
didn't,
try.
I didn't have some trouble with it.
After every cold spell, I have water running out the entrance.
Yeah.
Which is a good sign.
Yeah, I had that, but I definitely had, when I used the, pillow, it absorbed it all. It definitely absorbed a lot of moisture. And going on that concept of, ideas and things that get, be wary of any best management practices, which put everybody into one size fits all. Everything's different. I mean, you gotta kind of, try different things if you like. Yeah, I mean, I had my hives right next to each other and I lost one and the other ones were fine, you know, and I did all the same thing. I fed them all the same. First year I used tons of Hive Alive, did all that, used the fondant. Yeah. And then some of them I had extra fondant because they didn't need it. The ones I did die, though, I will say, they did have plenty of honey inside them, so it wasn't that they starved to death. I think it was, my poor management of temperatures. But this is really what we go for, right? We get to have some honey at the end, and it makes it all worthwhile. It makes it all worthwhile, right? Do you do anything special for your hives?
I mean, I've got, a spacer about that big on the top that, I've got a double case full of the shavings, and then around the side, housing insulation.
Uh-huh.
Got that.
Okay, so you do insulated sides. Does anybody put the tar paper onto the felt?
I did that one year.
Yeah.
I tried also bubble wrap,
Okay, yeah.
and the problem is fine unless you need to get into the hive. Then, so what I've got now is a 2-inch foam board glued into a 3-sided box. Slide it on, put it back on,
Okay.
strap it on.
Yeah.
And cheapest place to get foam board, insulated grout. Way cheaper than clothes.
What do you use for insulation? You said you insulate, right?
Yeah, well, I insulated, mine's only half inch. Half
And
inch
you do
square.
the sides too?
Yeah,
not just
I done the sides on
Yeah.
that one that I had, that's the only one. Then I done it the year before on one and saved them. And, then with that 1.5 inch, 2 inch on top, and everything was fine. Now, the year before, I didn't feed them at all.
Mhm.
Whatever, I just left,
Whatever.
full super,
Yeah.
full super, and spring, they come out just like normal. So,
And you do a super, right? Or the-
I have a super for emergency feed.
For emergency. So the only that they have is in the brood box itself, right?
Yeah.
And you're this 4-frame thing, right? 4 full frames.
4 full frames of food.
How much honey do you guys make?
I'll leave a full super.
Full super. How about you, sir?
Same way.
Full super. You too, you should. Full super. You don't have a super.
No, but I have a question.
Yeah.
What if you put an umbrella kind of above them? For when it has that wet snow and all that?
It'll condense on the inside of the umbrella.
Well, it'll be up high.
Inside the hive?
Oh, no, outside behind.
Oh, you're not talking about the condensate, you're talking about.
Just putting an umbrella over it.
Would have worked at my house.
It wouldn't?
I tried 40-mile-an-hour sustained winds.
It is.
I have no windbreak.
Oh,
You got nothing.
No trees, nothing.
oh, I got a little windbreak. I got,
And literally, I've had 10 degrees and 40-mile-an-hour sustained winds. When the fronts come through.
Oh, snow's a good insulator.
So for me, the absolute most important is the windbreak.
Do you do anything? Do you do anything for the windbreak? Just the
I
insulation?
use right now, I'm gonna upgrade. I've been using an old thrown away shade cloth. I'm gonna, shade cloth, it's the air flows through it. So the wind can't rip it off your frame. But it kills all the energy in the wind as it goes through. I'm gonna get some Harbor Freight shade cloths.
Shade or shade?
Shade, SHADE. Or you can also get them camouflage too.
You do anything for the wind? Nothing there, wind, right?
I know one man, he says he puts like the plastic in his bags. He said you have to take it so he don't.
Plastic bags. You do anything for wind?
For wind, I just tape seams up around the hive.
I heard that felt paper works for the wind, but said it's kind of messy.
There is another line of thought about the tar paper and the insulation.
Uh-huh.
I don't think you want to heat up the inside of the hive.
Right.
I'm sure you've all seen the post on Facebook of people who are putting heaters under their hives.
Yep.
I don't know about that either.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that some people mention that use the paper around it is that, it's black and when the sun's out, it's gonna absorb the heat and it is gonna, put some heat into the hive. And that might not be the best thing to do. You might want to keep it warm. Because again, the bees are not trying to insulate or heat the hive like we would do this room. They're only concerned about keeping that cluster warm, that area, that brood, the queen area. They're not worried about everything else being on it. It doesn't need to be for them to survive.
I also have outdoor thermometers on the top of each of my hives.
Mhm.
And the way I insulate it, the temperature never goes below 40.
Yeah.
In a hive.
Yeah.
Which means nothing ever freezes.
Right.
So you don't have any frozen frames of honey turning the hive into an ice box.
Mhm. What kind of thermometers?
I get just the cheapest ones I can find on Amazon. Ones that have like 3 remotes with them,
Oh, yeah, okay.
and my hives are close enough, I can just barely leave the main sensor in the house and look at it. It's also a way to kill curiosity.
Yeah, I used, I have some thermometers, but I want to get some more, so I'm looking for some cheap ones. He's getting mad at me for.
I would love to get the sensor ones that you put little sensors in at all different levels, and I was told no.
I have one of those and I was told, no, I can't get it.
You know,
So I gotta come up with a cheaper alternative.
Like you listen now.
they make a really neat one for laboratories that have to have really tight humidity and temperature readings. But I was told no.
Yeah, the one I have is only temperature, so of course I want to upgrade to temperature and humidity.
Yeah.
And well, I need 4 of them, so it's. But actually, she's very,
The cloud every 5 minutes.
very supportive. So as long as I get 2 more part-time jobs, then I can get it. I don't want to do that. That's too much like more. Drink of water. I've been lecturing all day, so my throat's. I actually talk about bees in my classes too. Usually I'll make a video when I go out and check on my bees for summer, and I'll play them in my classes. Trying to gen up some interest. I actually will have a lot of students after a lecture and they'll come up and talk. I said, do you ever get stung? Well, of course I get stung. I'm a beekeeper, for God's sake. Then they'll ask, what's the work, the whole story. So the worst I've ever did 5 times in just opening the hive, 3 of them. But that was those darn Russians. They hated me. Probably because I was in the military during the Cold War, so maybe they remembered it or something. It's in their genes. They, hey, wait a minute. This guy was. So, but that was the worst ever. 3 at once, and then that was just taking off the top, and then right after that, 2 more. So put the top back on. I'm done. I was going to ask something else with you, and I forgot what it was. Do we want to do the giveaway?
Yeah, Are there any people overwintering bees for the first time?
Back in the back.
Do you have any questions about the general procedures for that? We talked about insulation and all that, but like introducers, queen excluders, any of that? Do you have questions about it?
Well, I have plenty of honey in there, but a lot of people say they put on the sugar boards.
Uh-huh.
Any of you put on sugar boards?
The sugar boards are a type of emergency feed, and I would say, broadly speaking, it's good to have it ready. As to when you put it in and how much you put in, that depends, but it's good to have that emergency food available. And some bees will opt for honey and then use your sugar board. Some will need all the honey. It just every hive is different, but it's good to have the emergency food ready. But the main things for overwintering would be put the introducer on the smallest setting. And that temperature needs to be consistently cool for that to happen. Or your bees will get frustrated with temperature regulation. And the other thing is if you have a queen excluder, make sure it's out. Don't leave it in, or the queen can't go up and eat. And she'll die. So, those are your like basic overwinter things.
How many hives did you say?
4.
4, okay. Anybody use mouse guards?
Mine do something to me.
I'm sorry?
Mine on me.
Yours or me?
Yeah, he's got the rookie.
No, I got,
Yeah, you got rid of it.
got Don Tucker bees.
Oh, okay.
There's a guy out by Maysville, he's had bees since the late seventies. Never treated them, ever. And his bees are survivors, but wow.
They say some of the ones who survive like that are kind of nasty, but I guess that helps them. I don't know. I know that's why I got my Russians, because I had heard that the Russian bees are pretty good, dealing with the mites naturally. And I was like, oh no, to heck with this. I'll deal with I'll train them for mites. These guys are mean. I mean, even the drones that can't sting were going after me for crying out loud. You fat little guy.
I had one hive that I still say it got crossed with an African form. All of a sudden, one spring it went crazy. And it stayed that way. The next year it was still that way. So, yeah, it's, one thing though, you see on the Facebook, I think they encourage people to go to their hives way too much.
Yes.
I had back surgery a year ago. And so this year I was not able to get into them. I haven't looked at the brood since May. I know of 2 hives. I sold a guy for going on 3 years now, no management, and it's right.
Mhm.
So it's just, that's why
Yeah.
anything you can do to keep your curiosity getting the best of it.
Yeah. Dr. Leo up in Missouri there that does the horizontal hives, that's one of the things he says. He goes in like the beginning of the season and then goes in at the end to harvest the honey. And twice, that's it. That's the entire time he goes in the hives all year. Once in the beginning to set them up and then after that. But, and then I was watching someone else. I can't, he's a YouTuber, and he was talking about every 4 to 7 days going in the hives. I'm like, my gosh. I think if I was a bee, I'd be stinking you for that. Leave me alone. It's every 4 to.
Doesn't it take like a week for this to
I don't think so. Yeah. I mean, like that, they propolising what they like, and then you're over there tearing it apart.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the temperature that you kind of close it up?
Again, it's ask Brian, ask me, ask somebody else. They're going to give you different answers. I mean, that's why I was mentioning it's supposed to be warm through October. Normally, I would be getting ready maybe towards the end, and I definitely want to be done by Thanksgiving with them, completely done. But we've had some really warm temps that we've had, so I'm not in any rush to go out and get them ready for the winter.
You can wait until the first hard freeze. One hard freeze isn't gonna hurt them.
Yeah.
Unless it comes in with the wind.
I just needed it, that's the problem, just a night.
Ryan, what temp would you say?
For the smallest setting, I probably would want to see fairly consistent nighttime temperatures around low 40s with a smallest one. Probably all. That'd be my gut feel. But if it's like 60 stop in the other day, I still might hesitate for a bit. But
Yeah, I know one, I don't think it was last year, it might have been the year before that, where we had a little cold, and so I started going crazy, making sure, and then all of a sudden it got warm again.
yeah,
That's all it is.
oh, I had to go pull mine all off.
Yeah, I did, I had to go change everything around. The nice part about, well, not, one of the nice parts about the Abbey Bay is like to close it down, it's right there, you just close it, open it up, and, you know, it's. Now the vents, I can just close them, you know, put insulation in the top. The bottom boards are screened, but they have a little thing to slide in, so I usually put a little piece of insulation in that to kind of cut up some of the wind, but beyond that, that's about all I really do. Make sure they have food. And I'm a big backup type guy, so I have tons of sugar bowl, you know, stuff ready. But I'm extremely paranoid type now.
You never know about weather.
Right, yeah, I just never go, so. I do like the hybrid life, though. That stuff's been great. I really.
I just had one and I wanted to stay alive.
Yeah.
Day one, well, I opened them up in January, one up on one of them warm days. And seen it, kind of checked through, didn't have nothing. So I said, okay, I'll just throw one in there and see what happens. You know, they turned out good.
I did that. It was like I said, so it was cold and I put it on there. It's just a backup, figuring they're gonna eat the honey and whatever, and then it'll be there. They went right up and just ate through it. I'm like, oh, darn. What about all that honey that I left you? You should have been eating that. Nope. And I mean, when I opened it up just to take a peek to see it, there was like just a little bit and a lot left in the corner. Like, it's not even been that cold yet. You've got honey. So I said, next time I'm
I
gonna wait.
have inner covers with plexiglass windows in them
Yes.
that I can remove. And then I make my own fondant. And, I just pull the plexiglass slab of it in there and close it back up. You need a way to measure the weight of the hives too.
I'm using plexiglass this year. I have plexiglass in, because normally I leave the two feeders or the top cover, I leave those on. And then I insulate above it, but I'm taking those off this year when I winterize, and I'm gonna put plexiglass down.
It's another way to keep your curiosity down.
Because then if I open it up, at least I
You
don't
know,
have to go digging in.
It breaks the glass, and they say, oh, they're doing fine, close it up.
And that way I can also have the hive alive longer if I need it right there and see how it's doing. So, yeah, that's my biggest change this year that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use that, get rid of take the feeders off and then just insulate the top cover and then underneath it have that plexiglass. But I have all 7 frame equipment. I can't handle picking up 10 frame. Like I said, this is my money maker, not
Not that.
you know. Yeah. She has an 8 frame. I let that one's involved for sure. I was doing the Fred G. Sanford. I'm coming for you, Elizabeth. Whatever. All right, let's do that. Let's do the giveaway.
Sure.
Has everybody got their name in?
Uh,
Giveaway?
so are we talking about the 50/50 or the giveaway?
No, the giveaway.
Oh, okay.
The free gift.
I don't know if anyone noticed it was there.
Yeah, there should be a
Not
name.
hard.
Did everybody get a chance to put their name in for a giveaway tonight?
Dave pulled up to the dinner. We're gonna give away for a
Hey,
gift.
Christie, fill it out.
Come on up, put your name in. It's $50.
It's not.
It will be-